The research vessel Serenity's Edge drifted quietly through the vast emptiness of space. Inside the ship, humans and aliens worked together like old friends. Dr. Hannah Park sat at her workstation, watching the stars through the large window. She had been mapping this part of space for 3 years now, and she loved her job. Another day, another star system, she said to herself, smiling as she adjusted the sensors. The ship was home to both humans and a peaceful alien race called the Cathera. These aliens looked like tall, thin people with blue skin that seemed to glow softly. They were the kindest beings Hannah had ever met. Commander Jiho Kim walked over to her station. He was a quiet man who rarely smiled, but Hannah could tell he was happy on this mission. "Find anything interesting today?" he asked, looking at her screen. "Just the usual. Some gas clouds, a few dead planets. Nothing special," Hannah replied. She liked working with Jiho. He was smart and never made her feel stupid for asking questions. Elder Venth, the leader of the Cathara on their ship, moved gracefully across the bridge. His people always moved like they were dancing, even when they were just walking. "Acta Park," he said in his musical voice. "We are getting close to our home system. Perhaps we should check the long-range sensors." Hannah nodded and started working. On her controls, the Cathara had become like family to all the humans on the ship. When the terrible plague had hit human colonies 5 years ago, the Cathara had shared their healing knowledge freely. They had saved millions of human lives and never asked for anything in return. That was just who they were. "I love your people," Hannah had told Elder Venth once. "You help everyone, even strangers." "That is what friends do," he had replied simply. Now, as Hannah worked on the sensors, she felt lucky to be part of this mission. Humans and Cathara, learning from each other, exploring space together. It was everything she had dreamed of when she became a scientist. Suddenly, her screen lit up with red warning lights. "What the hell?" she muttered, then looked embarrassed. Elder Venth never used bad language, and she tried not to around him. "What is wrong?" Jiho asked, moving closer to her station. "I'm getting an emergency signal. It's coming from ... Juana's voice got quiet. "It's coming from Kithara Prime, their home planet." Elder Venth moved so fast that Hannah was startled. His usually calm face now looked scared. "Play the message," he said, and for the first time his voice was not musical. Hannah's fingers shook. As she worked the controls, static filled the bridge, loud and harsh. Then voices came through the speakers. Even though the words were in the Cathara language, Hannah could hear the fear and pain in them. The computer started translating the words into English. "This is Cathara Prime calling anyone who can hear us. We are under attack. There are ships everywhere, big ships with weapons. They are taking our people. They're hurting the children. The healing centers are on fire. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We need..." The voice was cut off by the sound of explosions, then screaming, and nothing but static. Elder Venth fell to his knees on the bridge floor. Around the room, other Cathara crew members began making a low, sad sound that made Hannah's heart break. She had never seen these peaceful beings in pain before. Who would do this? Who would attack the Cathera? They never heard. Anyone. Jiho's face had gone very pale. "Get me Earth Command," he said quietly. "Priority Alpha. Tell them it's about the Cathara." Hannah tried to help Elder Venth stand up, but he was shaking too much. "My children," he whispered. "My grandchildren live on the homeworld. They are so young, so innocent." "We'll help them," Hannah said, surprised by how angry her own voice sounded. "We'll find a way to help them." But even as she said the words, she wondered how. The Cathara homeworld was far away. By the time any human ships could get there, it might be too late. She thought about all the times Cathara doctors had saved human lives. She thought about Elder Venth teaching her about their culture, sharing their beautiful music and art. She thought about the Cathara children she had met. With their big eyes and gentle smiles, someone had hurt her friends. Someone had attacked the most peaceful, kind people in the galaxy. As Hannah helped Elder Venth to a chair, she felt something cold and hard growing in her chest. She had never felt this way before, like she wanted to hurt someone back. "Sir," she called to Jiho. How fast can we get a message to Earth? About 6 hours, he replied, still working on the communication system. Good, Hannah said, her voice steady despite the anger burning inside her. Because I think humanity is about to find out what happens when someone hurts our family. The bridge fell quiet, except for the sad sounds of the Cathara and the static still coming from their destroyed homeworld. Admiral Minho Lee stood in the war room deep inside Earth Command headquarters. The room was filled with screens showing star maps and fleet positions. He had been a soldier for 30 years, but he had never felt anything like the cold anger that filled him now. Show me the message again, he said to the young officer at the control desk. The terrible sounds filled the room once more. The voices of the Kithara speaking in fear and pain, the explosions, the screams, then silence. Minho closed his eyes. He remembered his daughter lying in a hospital bed 5 years ago, dying from the plague that was killing children all over human space. He remembered how hopeless he had felt. Then the Cathara had come with their medicine, their healing knowledge. They had saved his little girl and millions of other children. They had asked for nothing in return. Sir, said Captain Sora Jung, her image appearing on one of the screens. She was calling from her ship near the outer colonies. We've confirmed the attackers. It's the Hegemon Collective. Minho's hands formed tight fists. The Hegemon Collective was a group of warlike aliens who took over planets and made slaves of the people living there. They had been growing stronger for years, but they had never attacked anyone humanity cared about before. How many ships do you have ready? He asked. 7, sir. We can be moving in 12 hours. More screens lit up around the room. Ship captains from all over human space were calling in. Captain Soman Han appeared on another screen. Admiral, I've got 60 ships here in the core worlds. Some of them are old, but they still have teeth. I'm pulling ships out of the shipyards called Commander Do-Yan Choi from the Rim territories. Even the ones that were supposed to be scrapped. If it can fly and fight, we're taking it. Minho watched as more and more captains reported in. He had expected maybe 50 ships. Maybe 100 if they were lucky. But the numbers kept growing. 200 ships. 300. Captains were volunteering faster than he could count them. Sir, said his aide, Lieutenant Won-Ho Kim. We're getting calls from retired officers too. They want to come back to active duty in the shipyards. Minho asked. Working around the clock, sir. They're pulling weapons from storage, fixing old ships, loading everything we have. Minho nodded slowly. He had seen humanity go to war before, but never like this. Usually, they fought for territory or resources or to protect themselves. This was different. This was personal. He thought about Elder Venth, the kind old alien who had visited Earth many times. The Cathara had become more than allies to humanity. They were friends, family. Listen to me, Minho said, his voice carrying to every screen in the room. All of you remember what the Cathara did for us. When our children were dying, they saved them. When we needed friends in this hostile galaxy, they stood with us. They shared their knowledge, their medicine, their culture. They made us better. People, the room was completely quiet now. Every face on every screen was listening. Now someone has hurt them. Someone has attacked our friends, our family. The Hegemon Collective thinks they can slaughter innocent people and will do nothing about it. Minho's voice grew harder. They're wrong, Captain Sora spoke up. What are your orders, Admiral? We mobilize everything. Every ship, every weapon. Every soldier in human space. I want fleets moving from every sector. This isn't just about saving the Kithara, though that's reason enough. This is about sending a message to the galaxy.
What message, sir?
Asked Commander Do-Yan. Minho looked at all the faces on the screens. Good people, brave people, people who understood what friendship meant. The message is simple. No one hurts our friends. No one ever. The responses came fast. Understood, sir. Moving to intercept. They picked the wrong fight. As the screens went dark one by one, Minho turned to his aide. Won-Ho, get me a ship. I'm going with them. Sir, you're needed here to coordinate. No, Minho said firmly. My place is with the fleet. The Cathara would do the same for us. Within hours, Something amazing was happening across human space. Old soldiers were putting on uniforms they hadn't worn in years. Factories that had been making peaceful goods started making weapons and ammunition. Ships that had been retired were pulled out of storage and made ready for war. The news spread quickly. The Cathara, the gentle aliens who had saved humanity's children, were under attack. And humanity was going to save them, in bars and homes across 100 worlds. People watched the news and felt the same cold anger that Admiral Minho felt. These weren't just any aliens being attacked. These were their friends. God help the Hegemon Collective, said an old veteran, watching the news, because humanity sure as hell won't. The largest fleet in human history was being born, and it had only one purpose: to show the galaxy what happened when someone hurt humanity's family. Captain Yoonji Shin stood on the bridge of her ship, the Righteous Fury, and watched something she had never seen before. Through the large windows, hundreds of human ships floated in space like angry metal stars. Big ships, small ships, old ships, new ships, all of them ready to fight. "Captain," said Lieutenant Wonho Park, her second in command, "we now have 437 human ships in the fleet. More are still coming." Yoonji shook her head in amazement. She had been in the Navy for 15 years, but she had never seen so many ships in one place. "Any word from the other species?" "Yes. Ma'am, the Valdris Republic sent 12 of their spy ships to help us. The Deep Dwellers came up from their ocean worlds. They brought supply ships. Even the Tree People sent some of their living ships." Yoonji smiled for the first time in days. When other alien races heard that humanity was going to save the Cathara, they wanted to help too. Everyone in the galaxy loved the Cathara. They were healers, teachers, and friends to all peaceful species. Captain called Communications Officer Kyung-soo from his station. "We're getting a message from the Hegemon Collective. Put it on the main screen," Yoonji said. A ugly alien face appeared on the screen. It had too many teeth and small, mean eyes. "This is Commander Vex of the Hegemon Collective. You are entering our territory. Leave now or face the consequences." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Yoonji started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that meant someone was about to get hurt. "Our territory?" She said, "Did this fool just call Cathara Space's territory?" She pressed the button to reply. "This is Captain Shin of the human fleet. Let me explain something to you, Commander Vex. That planet you're attacking, those people you're hurting, they're our friends, and we don't let anyone hurt our friends." The alien's face got angry. "You cannot stop us, human. We are the Hegemon Collective. We have conquered 50 worlds. Good for you," Yoonji said calmly. "But you just made the biggest mistake of your life. You hurt the Cathara. You hurt our family." She turned to face her crew. "Cut the transmission. I'm done talking to that thing." The screen went dark, and Yoonji looked out at the massive fleet around her ship. Each ship was full of angry humans who wanted to save their friends. She had fought in 3 wars, but she had never seen soldiers this determined. "All ships," she announced over the fleet communication system. "This is Captain Shin. In 1 hour, we jump to Cathara space. When we get there, we're going to show the Hegemon Collective what happens when they mess with humanity's friends." Cheers echoed across the communication channels. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, all united by one simple idea: save the Cathara. But Yoonji knew this was about more than just one battle. News of the human fleet had spread across the galaxy. Other species were watching to see what humanity would do. Some were afraid. Some were hopeful. All of them were learning something important about humans. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Wonho said quietly, "the Hegemon Collective has been conquering planets for 20 years. They have big ships, lots of weapons. This won't be easy." Yoonji nodded. "You're right, it won't be easy. But we're not doing this because it's easy. We're doing this because it's right." She thought about the Cathara she had met over the years. Elder Venth, who had taught her about their beautiful music. Dr. Healing Song, who had saved her brother's life after a mining accident. The young Cathara students who had come to Earth to learn about human culture. The Cathara never hurt anyone. She said they spend their whole lives helping others. "They saved our children when the plague came. They shared their knowledge freely. They were our friends when we needed friends. She paused, looking at her crew. Good people, all of them. People who understood what friendship meant. Now they need us. And we're going to be there for them, no matter what it costs. The hour passed quickly. Ships checked their weapons, soldiers prepared their equipment, and captains said prayers to whatever gods they believed in. This was going to be the biggest space battle in human history. All ships ready, Captain, reported Wanho. Then let's go save our friends, Yunji said. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. 437 ships, carrying the hopes and anger of all humanity. Behind them, more ships were still coming. The entire human race was mobilizing for one purpose, to show the galaxy that no one could hurt their friends and get away with it. As the stars streaked past the windows, Yunji thought about what they would find at Kithara Prime. She knew it would be bad. The Hegemon Collective were not kind conquerors, but she also knew that help was coming. The Kithara had saved humanity's children. Now humanity was coming to save them. The largest rescue mission in galactic history was underway, and nothing was going to stop it. Commander Taeyunyu gripped the arms of his captain's chair as his ship dropped out of hyperspace. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Kithara Prime, the beautiful blue and green world that had been home to billions of peaceful aliens, was surrounded by ugly gray warships. Smoke rose from the planet's surface like black tears. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "I'm counting over 200 enemy ships. They're using the moons as shield positions." Taeyon nodded grimly. The Hegemon Collective had brought a big fleet, but so had humanity. Behind him, hundreds of human ships appeared in space like angry metal wasps. "All ships," he broadcast to the fleet. "This is Commander Yu. You can see what they've done to our friend's world. Remember why we're here. Remember who we're fighting." On his main screen, he could see the enemy ships moving to attack positions. They were big and heavily armed, but Taeyon wasn't afraid. He was furious. "Weapons free," he announced. "Hunt them down. Every last one." The battle began like thunder in space. Human ships didn't fight like other species. They didn't try to be clever or careful. They hunted. When a Hegemon ship tried to run, there was always a human destroyer waiting for it. When they tried to hide behind asteroids, human fighters found them anyway. Captain Minju Lim watched the space battle from her troop transport ship. She was in charge of the ground forces, the soldiers who would go down to the planet to save the Kithara people. Through her window, she could see the beautiful crystal cities of the Kithara, but now they were broken and burning. Sergeant said, "We're getting reports from the surface. The Hegemon forces have put the Kithara in work camps. They're using them as slaves." Minju's hands formed tight fists. The Kithara were teachers and healers. They had never hurt anyone in their entire history. The idea of them being used as slaves made her sick with anger. "Get me the 1st Battalion," she ordered. Her soldiers appeared on screens around the command center. They were good people, volunteers who had signed up to save their friends. She could see the same anger in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "Listen up," she said. "We're going down there to get our friends back. The Kithara saved our children. When the plague came, they never asked for anything in return. Now it's our turn to save them." "What about prisoners, ma'am?" asked one of her captains. Minju thought about the broken cities below, about the Kithara children who were probably scared and hungry. Any Hegemon soldier who surrenders can live. Any who don't, she shrugged. That's their choice. The dropships screamed down through the atmosphere. As they got closer to the surface, Minju could see the full horror of what the Hegemon Collective had done. The beautiful gardens where Kithara families had lived and played were now ugly factories, like the healing. Centers where Kithara doctors had worked to help others were now broken ruins. "1st Battalion, take the northern camps," she ordered, as her soldiers deployed. 2nd Battalion, the factory areas. 3rd Battalion, find me every Hegemon commander still alive. I want them to know exactly why they're about to die, the human. Soldiers moved through the enemy positions like death itself. They had trained for this kind of fighting, but more importantly, they were fighting for their friends. Every Hegemon soldier they met learned what it meant to face humans who were truly angry, Sergeant Jinwoo Han kicked down the door of a prison building and found dozens of Cathara inside. They were thin and scared, but alive. When they saw his human uniform, they began to cry with relief. "It's okay," he said gently, the same voice he used with his own children. "We're here to take you home." An old Cathara reached out with a shaking hand. "You came for us," he whispered. "You really came." "Of course we came," Jinwoo replied. "You're our friends." Across the planet, the same scene was happening over and over. Human soldiers found Cathara prisoners and set them free. They found injured Cathara and called for medical help. They found Cathara children and held them until their parents came down. Space, the battle was ending. The Hegemon fleet was being destroyed ship by ship. Some tried to surrender, but the humans weren't interested in talking. They had heard the original distress call too many times. They knew what these aliens had done to innocent people. Commander Vex, the Hegemon leader who had threatened the human fleet, was finally captured. They brought him before Admiral Minho Lee, who had come with the fleet to see this through. "Dwi, surrender," Vex said, his voice shaking. "We offer you territory, resources, anything you want." Admiral Minho looked at the alien with cold eyes. Around them, rescued Cathara were being helped by human medics. "You can surrender to them," he said, pointing to the Cathara. "They're the ones you hurt. But we're not interested in talking to you." The Hegemon Collective had made a terrible mistake. They had thought they could attack the kindest species in the galaxy and no one would care. They had learned too late that the Cathara had friends who would cross any distance to save them. 6 months later, Dr. Hannah Park walked through the gardens of Cathara Prime. The crystal towers rose again toward the sky, their surfaces catching the light of the twin suns. Cathara children ran and played among flowers that human gardeners had helped plant. The sound of their laughter filled the air like music. It was hard to believe this. It was the same world she had seen burning during the war. Human engineers and Cathara builders had worked together to rebuild everything. The healing centers were bigger and better than before. The schools were full of children again. The nightmare was over. Dr. Park called a familiar voice. "Elder." Venth walked toward her, moving with the same grace he had always shown. But there were lines on his face now, marks left by the terrible things he had seen. Elder Venth Hannah smiled, happy to see her old friend alive and well. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," he said, sitting on a bench beside her. "Each day gets a little easier. It's the children help. When I see them playing and laughing, I remember that life goes on." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the Cathara youngsters play. Above them, human patrol ships moved slowly across the sky. They had been there every day since the war ended, making sure no one would ever threaten the Cathara again. "I wanted to thank you again," Elder Venth said quietly. "Not just for saving us, but for what you taught us about friendship." Anna looked confused. "What do you mean you taught us about friendship? You saved our children during the plague and never asked for anything back." Elder Venth shook his head. "We helped because it was the right thing to do. But what you did, what all humans did, that was different. Came to save us knowing you might die. You risked everything for us." He pointed to the human ships above. "Your people could have gone home after the battle. Instead, they stayed to help us rebuild. They brought supplies, medicine, workers. Some of your soldiers are still here, helping. Our police keep the peace." Hannah nodded. It was true. When the fighting ended, most humans had expected to go home. But when they saw how much work needed to be done, thousands had volunteered to stay and help. Engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers, all working alongside the Cathara to rebuild their world. "We knew humans were capable of great kindness," Elder Venth continued. "But we never understood you were also capable of such." Terrible love, Hannah asked. "Love so strong that you would destroy anyone who threatens it. Love that turns gentle people into warriors. Love that crosses the galaxy too. Answer a cry for help." He looked at her with his large, gentle eyes. We had never seen anything like it. Hannah thought about the months of fighting. The Hegemon Collective had been completely destroyed. Every ship, every base, every leader, all gone. The galaxy had watched in amazement as humanity systematically hunted down everyone who had hurt the Cathera. "Maybe we went too far," she said quietly. "No," Elder Venth said firmly. "You did exactly what needed to be done. And now the entire galaxy knows what happens when someone hurts humanity's friends." He was right. The news had spread to every star system, every species, every government. A simple message that everyone understood. The humans have friends. Be one of them, or stay very far away. The Valdris Republic had immediately signed a friendship treaty with humanity. The Deep Dwellers had opened trade agreements. Even species that had never talked to humans before were sending ambassadors to Earth. But it wasn't just fear that motivated them. Other species had watched how humans treated their friends. They'd seen humans risk everything to save the Kithera, then stay. To help rebuild, they had seen human soldiers share their food with Cathara children, human doctors work around the clock to heal the wounded, human engineers give up their own time to rebuild schools and hospitals. "The galaxy is different now," Elder Vinth said. "Before, species mostly kept to themselves. Now, they want to be part of something bigger. They want to be humanity's friends." Hannah smiled. "That's good. The universe can be a scary place. It's better when we stick together." A group of Cathara children ran over to them, chattering excitedly in their musical language. One of them, a little girl with bright silver eyes, climbed onto Hannah's lap. "Dr. Park," the child said in careful English, "will you tell us the story again, about how the humans came to save us?" Hannah looked at Elder Venth, who nodded with a smile. This had become a tradition the children loved. Hearing about the Great Rescue, about the hundreds of ships that had come from across human space. "Once upon a time," Hannah began, "there were people called the Kithera who were the kindest, most helpful people in the galaxy. They saved everyone who needed help, and they never asked for anything in return." As she told the story, more children gathered around. Some were Kithera, but others were human children whose families had stayed to help with the rebuilding. They all listened with wide eyes to the tale of friendship and rescue. When she finished, the children cheered and ran off. To play. Elder Venth stood to leave, but he paused. "Dr. Park," he said, "what you did here will be remembered forever, not just by us, but by every species in the galaxy. You showed them all what real friendship looks like," as Hannah watched him walk away. She looked up at the human patrol ship still guarding the sky. The war was over, but the promise remained. No friend of humanity would ever cry for help in vain. That night, she wrote in her journal, "Today I learned that the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies, showing the galaxy what it means to be a friend."